Hi everyone, my name is Aurora and I would like to welcome you all to our latest Novedge webinar episode. In this week's episode, we're going to be covering rendering animation and the KeyShot Cloud. The new version of KeyShot is here, and in this webinar we will introduce the new interface, faster rendering options, powerful new animation features, advanced tools, and the all-new KeyShot Cloud. So here presenting this webinar is Rex Roberts, a digital media artist for Luxion, specializing in product design, content creation, development, and support. Before we get going, here's an overview of what we do at Novedge. Novedge is one of the largest online design software stores. We offer a huge assortment of software solutions that cater to virtually every designer's need. Put us to the test and come visit our webpage at novedge.com. And also, if you want to know more about Luxion, check out their website at luxion.com, and Rex will say a little bit more about that during his presentation. Have you been on the Novedge blog lately? The Novedge blog is a great resource to keep up with the latest software updates and where you can enjoy inspiring interviews of today's innovators. And for daily news and promos, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Google+. If you join our network, you won't miss another special or another webinar ever again. So before we start, let me remind you that next week we have another webinar, and it will cover lighting in Atlantis with Chris Stringer. Okay, so last but not least, today's presentation is free and is being recorded live. If you want to rewatch this or any of the webinar episodes, you can find this webinar and any of the ones before on our YouTube and Vimeo channels. Just search for Novedge. Okay, so Rex, I'm going to pass this on to you. You ready?
I'm ready.
Great. And here we go.
Okay, are you able to see my screen?
I see it very well.
Okay, thank you so much, Aurora, and thank you, Novedge, for giving us this opportunity to present KeyShot 5 today. So as you know, KeyShot 5 has officially been released to the public. And today will be an intermediate level webinar for those that have used KeyShot in the past. I'll be going over some of the changes you'll notice to the application, along with the new features and functionality that make KeyShot 5 more powerful, faster, and even easier to use. So we're here on KeyShot.com is actually the website, not Luxion.com. Here on the home page, if we go to Features and navigate to What's New, we are given an outline of all the new features, some images to accompany those features, and some more information about them. So I would recommend checking out KeyShot.com and the What's New page. And we also have a What's New guide, which is a PDF. With a more detailed explanation of some of the individual features. So as you can see here, we've broken down the new features into 4 main categories. So we have a streamlined user interface, enhanced rendering speed, powerful new animation tools, and advanced pro features. So this will pretty much be the structure of today's webinar. So why don't we go ahead and get started. Aurora, I think maybe your mic is unmuted, and I'm getting a little bit of background noise.
Yes, I actually just unmuted myself. I was muted. I heard that too. I'm not sure. I'm gonna keep myself unmuted. For some reason, that doesn't give any noise. So
okay.
Not sure about that.
Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Go down in my toolbar here and launch KeyShot. So as you can see, I'm using a Windows computer. This is a 64-bit, and it is a 12-core machine, but it has been hyper-threaded, so I can take advantage of 24 cores. If we look up here in the new ribbon, you can see that I do have 24 cores available. But for now, I'll keep it around 18. so we can make sure to keep the audio quality and the visual quality as good as we can.
And Rex,
yeah.
if I may interrupt you for a sec, can you make your screen bigger?
Sure.
It'd be great to see. Wonderful, thank you.
Yeah. This is just one of the new features, is the CPU core usage selection. And as I mentioned, the computer is hyper-threaded, so KeyShot is 100% CPU based. So I would highly recommend looking into your processor and finding out if it is if you are able to hyper-thread it. It's very easy to go into your BIOS and just enable hyper-threading. There are some videos on YouTube that explain how to do that, and that'll just allow you to get the highest performance out of your machine as possible.
And let me just, I have a question here from somebody that says they cannot see what you are showing. So I want to make sure that everybody can see Rex's screen.
I just have the a KeyShot window open. I don't have any scenes open.
Yes, I just got an answer. Okay, great. So wonderful. If you have any issues, you might want to get in and out. Okay, some people are having problems, so you might want to try to log back in the webinar, as I think it might be an individual problem here.
Okay, so as you can see in the real-time view here, we have our new KeyShot welcome screen that is showing, and this gives you immediate access to your recently opened documents, as well as the KeyShot newsletter and some learning tutorials. And you also have the option to show this at startup or not. So you can just uncheck that box if you prefer not to see this screen. But it's nice because I can get quick access to one of my recent scenes that I've opened. So you can see that here. And so let's go through the different components of the interface here. So you're probably familiar with the toolbar if you've used KeyShot in the past, but we have changed things up a little bit here. You can see we have the new KeyShot Cloud icon here to the left. So that'll open up our online library where you can upload and share resources as well as download and use resources in your scene. So I'll go through this a little bit later in more detail. And just like the other windows, the KeyShot Cloud can be docked or floated, and we can also dock this on both the top, bottom, and the sides. And if you didn't know, the toolbar can also be docked in other locations or floated just by grabbing the little handle here. So then if we continue to go through our toolbar here, you can see the import. You should all be familiar with this from KeyShot 4. This allows you to import CAD geometry as well as just opening BIP files or KSPs. And then we have our library, so you can see there are little arrows here. These are flyouts for quick navigation to individual tabs. We have our project, our animation window, and the render window. And we've pulled screenshot off to the side because it's a little different functionality than the other buttons here, but if you just want to take a quick screenshot of your real-time view, you can click that screenshot button. And we used to have the KeyShot VR button here, but we've actually moved that up to our new Tools ribbon. So depending on if you're using KeyShot HD or KeyShot Pro, you'll have some different options here on your ribbon. So let's go through what these different functions and buttons do. So I mentioned the CPU usage before. Now we have a button for pause, so you no longer have to press the hotkey to pause your real-time view. And what this does is just frees up your processor for you to use your CAD application or your Creative Suite. We have our scene sets toggle button. I will go through scene sets later. That is a pro feature that links what was formerly known as model sets to cameras and view sets. We have our toggle camera button, so this allows you to toggle through your saved cameras. We can lock our camera here so the mouse doesn't affect the screen. We've also introduced some new camera movement modes. So this is very helpful if you're working on a laptop and you don't have a mouse. You can now not only tumble the camera, but also pan. This is all using the left mouse button and dolly as well. So if you're missing that middle mouse scroll wheel, this gives you some more options to navigate in your scene. We also have a quick slider adjustment for perspective. So the default value is 35, and sometimes that can be a little exaggerated depending on your scene. Since this is a larger scale object or model I have in my scene and we have this front view, I wanted to increase the perspective. So this allows me to just type in the value here without having to open up my project window. This button here is for material templates. We have a quick button for the HDRI editor. This will be the NURBS mode button. It is inactive now because this scene does not contain any NURBS. I will go through that in more detail later. We have our performance mode, so this will turn off some of the shadows and turn down the ray bounces, so just allow you to work a little faster in your scene. And then just like the toolbar, the ribbon can also be floated and docked in different locations just by grabbing that handle and dragging it around your scene. Okay, so in addition to the toolbar and the ribbon, we have also made improvements to the menu here. We've expanded this and reorganized and regrouped some of these options to make more sense and allow you to work more efficiently. So you might notice a new export feature. This is also a pro that I'll get into later. We have some 3D print export options. Under the edit menu, we now have a quick one-click ability to import primitive geometry into your scene. So if you wanted to add, say, an area diffuse light or a point light, you can quickly just click to add a sphere, and that will import into your scene without having to deal with any of those import settings. And we also have the ground plane, which was in KeyShot 4, but we've also introduced backdrop ramp and round, which have the ground material. So these options just allow you to quickly add geometry, common geometry to your scene. We've also made some changes to scene units, so a little quicker access to the scene units. And we do have some units already applied to our scene. So if I go ahead and click to change the unit, you can see we have a couple different options for convert and correlate. We have the environment settings, as well as some camera settings that you would find in the project window, including the match backplate perspective, which I'll get into later. That is also a pro feature. Something very helpful under the render menu is new add to queue button with the hotkey. So this, used in combination with scene sets or view sets, can be a very powerful feature that allows you to quickly toggle through your different scene iterations and add those to your queue to render sometime later. We also have some settings here, different view modes, so you can see your heads-up display and your coordinate legend, and both of those are given hotkeys. The coordinate legend is helpful for identifying which projection mode is best for different labels or textures. The heads-up display will show you the frames per second, how fast KeyShot is rendering these frames in the real-time view. And actually with KeyShot 5, we're seeing over 2 times the speed with similar scenes as compared to KeyShot 4. So you're going to be seeing some speed enhancements definitely with KeyShot 5. Okay, I'll just hide those for now. The window, you'll see options to show your different window boxes, your project, your library. You can hide and show the toolbar, pretty basic stuff. But we've also added a style sheet editor. So if anybody knows Qt and is interested in creating a style sheet for KeyShot, we've made that accessible to everyone. So you can have some fun with that, and you can actually paint up the application and customize it for yourself. So if anyone does decide to create a Qt style sheet, please share it on our forum, and we would love to distribute that as well if possible. And then under the help menu, we have our hotkeys list, which has been updated, as well as links to the new manual, which has been updated, and also some learning tutorials, etc. Okay, so that's it for the toolbar, the ribbon, and the menu. So let's go ahead and open up some of our windows here. We have our library and our project, and when I open those up, you notice that they're actually docked side by side. In the past, you're only able to dock them on either side of the application or stacked on top of each other. So now we have a little more flexibility. We can dock those stacked in a tabbed format, and we can dock them side by side as well as stacked on top of each other. So I would recommend just playing around with some different configurations and finding what works best for you and your scene. I personally prefer to work with them side by side, and what this allows me to do is to quickly just save materials from my scene. So if I decide I want to save this material, I can just drag and drop it right into one of my folders to quickly save that. And you can also drag and drop your materials onto parts in the real-time view, or in your, in the scene tree, or in your in-project palette. So you may notice, looking at the library here, that the thumbnails are looking a little different than they were before. In KeyShot 4, it was a basic sphere, and it didn't give the best representation of what the material was, actually. So now you have a more accurate representation of textures and transparency, as well as some refraction and reflection and material properties. And then if we go to our next tab here, the Colors tab, we've updated the Pantone library. So all these Pantone colors are current, and what you can do with the colors is just drag and drop them onto your scene just to quickly make color changes and different variations. Okay, also what you'll notice in the library is this new Favorites tab. So in the past we had a Renderings tab here that we found not many of our users were actually using. So we've replaced it with a new Favorites tab, which allows you to group commonly used materials as well as backplates and your other resources all in one location, so you can quickly apply those to your scene. So let me go ahead and open up another scene, and I can show you how we might use this. So if I launch my Finder, on the Windows you'll find your KeyShot 5 resources folder under your documents. That is the default location for that to be installed. And we'll go into our Scenes folder. We have a couple new demo scenes in here, one of which is the new material ball. So I'm just going to open that up in my scene. And you can see this is the material ball that we've used for the thumbnails in the library. And I created a little marketing image for the What's New page, as you can see here by this thumbnail. So I'll just quickly show you guys how I set that up using the pattern tool and using some of our new procedural textures. So if we just zoom out here, you can go ahead and delete this ground plane. And we can begin to pattern. So if we select the top level model in our scene tree and right click, you can see there's now an option to pattern in addition to duplicate. Now if we click on or right click on a part level, you can see we do not have pattern available. So pattern is available only for the top level models, but remember in KeyShot we do allow for grouping and moving groups in the scene tree. So if you do desire to pattern a part, you can always just move that to the model's level. So there is a difference between duplicate and pattern. When we duplicate a part, it is just making a copy and they're no longer related to each other. When we pattern, it's actually an instance that are all referencing the same geometry. So when we do make a pattern, if we decide to make some changes in our CAD software, and we can update geometry or use live linking to then update all of those instance models, whereas duplicates will only update the original. So here we have the pattern tool dialog open. You can see we have the option for a linear pattern or circular. So if we bump up the number of instances, you can see that it begins to pattern in the real-time view, and you can see the scene tree start to populate. So we have options for count of our instances and spacing in between our instances. And we can also rotate the objects. So I'm looking for a composition something like this. We have the option to center and resize the environment. So if we click on the original model, you can see that it is not actually the center. So with center checked, it allows this group then to be centered in our scene. And that'll just allow for the lighting to be a little more consistent across all of the models. And then resize environment, as you are adding instances, in order for those to fit in the environment, I would recommend having resize environment checked. Okay, so let's go ahead and say OK. And now we have our pattern in our scene. Just going to switch my background to solid color here. And I'm going to unlock my aspect so I can take advantage of the full space in the real-time window. The instancing, that helps KeyShot run faster with more complex scenes. You can have more models and parts in your scene and still enjoy the speed of KeyShot. And you can see shadows are actually, they're calculating faster, as well as the area lights or physical lights and materials. So overall, KeyShot has become quite a bit faster in KeyShot 5, and you'll notice the differences in the real-time view. Okay, so let's go ahead and start applying some materials here. I'd like to show you guys some of the new procedural textures that we've added. We do have some of those in the library. When you do the full install of KeyShot 5, you will be given our updated library with over 500 materials here. And we can quickly just drag and drop these onto parts in our scene. So this is the cloth weave procedural texture type. So if I double click to edit that material and go to the Textures tab, you can see the texture type drop down allows you to choose between your traditional texture map as well as a variety of new procedurals that we've added. Okay, so we have some cloth weave in here. We have two different types of procedural textures. One is a 2D texture, which is this cloth weave is a 2D texture type, and you can tell because it has this position option and projection types. So this will map very similarly to a traditional texture map. You can see if we're using box map, we may get some seams here. In this case, we'd probably want to use a spherical map so we don't get those seams, but this will be okay for now. So that is an example of a 2D procedural texture. So let's take a look at a 3D procedural texture. We can go into our metals folder and let's look for a hammered metal. Okay, so here I have a nickel hammered, and we want to reduce the scale of that a little bit so we can see what's going on. And so this cellular procedural type is a 3D texture, and that allows for smooth mapping along complex edges and corners. So you will not get the seams that you'll see with the 2D textures or your traditional texture maps. So just like any other material in KeyShot, you can go ahead and adjust these live in real time and see all those changes occurring. So let's move on. That was the cellular type. I'd also like to show you guys the new brushed procedural texture. So this gives you some flexibility to create brushed materials, perhaps for your home appliances, etc. And you can adjust these values, and really helps you create your perfect custom material. So we're hoping that users out there will be able to create some materials and share those in the KeyShot Cloud to share with other KeyShot users in the community. Okay, let's continue and go through the rest of our procedural textures here. Maybe a brass, and we'll look for a scratched material. Again, might want to reduce the scale to fit our model a little better. So what I recommend is you guys just find some of the materials in the library that are using the procedural types and playing around with those to see what works best for you. We have a carbon fiber. We'll apply that. And actually, I'd like to add this carbon fiber to my favorites. So I've already created this automotive folder, my automotive favorites folder. So if I find my carbon fiber material in the library, I can right-click and select Add to Favorite, and I can either create a new folder or just add to the automotive folder. So now you can see that carbon fiber is in there, and whenever I'm rendering out a car that has carbon fiber or any of these other materials, I have very quick access right through the Favorites tab. Okay, let me show a couple more of these procedural texture types. If I change this maybe to a tune material and select a color, the curvature procedural. So this will identify different levels of curvature on your models. If you're familiar with CAD modeling, you've probably used a similar tool to this in the past, but you can get creative with these procedural textures, and perhaps you can use this along with the tune material to create a kind of cell shading look. And we can adjust some of these values. And you can begin to get some interesting looks by combining different materials with the different procedural texture types. The last procedural texture I want to show you guys is the color gradient, which I think will be very popular. Let's change this to a metal and go to our Textures tab. We have the color texture selected, and we'll go over to color gradient. So you can see the default is a linear gradient, but we can change that to spherical, open up our mapping tool, and use the position to center that gradient where we desire. And then we can adjust the scale and the location of the transition of those gradients. So I'm going to adjust the colors. And what this reminds me of is a pair of Oakley lenses that I actually use when I'm riding my bike, and they call it the Jade Iridium lens. So this type of metallic looking lens with a color gradient on there, I think this type of procedural texture will be very helpful in allowing designers to create that. So any of these materials I create, I can save to my library. So I can find my Jade Iridium and rename it and save it to my library. And then I can go ahead and upload that to the KeyShot Cloud. So a name, a description, and tags are required to upload your resources to the KeyShot Cloud. And I can add a description. And we can query for suggestions, and it'll pull tags from the information we've provided. And we can upload that directly to the KeyShot Cloud, and it's right there for users at home to download and use in their own scene. So in order to download, you can click the Add button on the thumbnail. We have options to display thumbnails or list view. And we have some search features as well as browsing filters. And you can switch between the tabs here. If we expand this, you can see we have materials, backplates, textures, and environments. So those are the 4 different resource types that you can upload and download from the KeyShot Cloud. Okay, so now that we have some materials applied to our scene, let's go ahead and let's add some labels so I can show you another exciting new feature. So if I go over to my Textures tab and bring a label and drop it onto my material here, we have some very cool flexibility in KeyShot 5, which allows you to change your material from the library and still keep textures and labels. So if I find, say, let's go with a metallic paint, and as I drag this into my scene, you can see the message at the top of the screen. So I want to hold Control to retain my label before I drag it on there, and I can release, and now there's no need to set up labels and textures again after changing material. So this is going to allow you to work a lot faster with materials and textures. And we can also do the same for textures, so hold Alt and retain those textures to retain that hammered look. Okay, so let's go ahead and quickly render this image out so I can show you some improvements we've made to the render output image editor. If we click on this little pencil icon, we can see now we have the ability to make adjustments to exposure, color, and effects as our image is rendering. So we can increase the vignette, and you can see that all taking effect while the image is rendering. So you no longer have to apply bloom and vignette in the real-time view. You can do that in post, and you can save out different variations. So if I wanted to make a color shift, I can click to save. You can see the original is already saved to our renderings folder, and I can save as many variations as I desire. Okay, so let's close out of this scene and open up something a little more interesting. We have a muscle car scene that I've set up, and we can unpause this and bring up my animation timeline window. So we can scrub through our animation and see we have some new features applied. We have the fade animation as well as a camera switch event, which is this orange circle. So the fade allows you to either create transitions between your animations. You can also use it for some interesting layering effects. So here I have some kind of engine that I have layered with each of the parts fading in at a time. So you can really get creative with these new features and create some very cool animations. One thing that's changed about animations in the workflow is the location of the animation properties. So those are now located within the timeline, right there next to your animations, so you have quick access to those properties, as opposed to before they were located in the scene tree. So let me go ahead and show you guys how I added these fade animations. So I'll delete those, as well as the camera switch event. So now we have just a camera animation and our wheels turning and moving. So first what I want to do is fade out the entire assembly. So if I go to the scene tree, right click on my assembly, animation, fade, it adds a node to our animation timeline, and then you can see the opacity sliders here. So we want to go from 100% to 0% opacity. So now we're completely faded out, and then when our animation starts, I want to fade the assembly back in. So we'll do the same thing, add a fade, but this time it will be from 0 to 100. Maybe we'll shorten that to half a second. So now the car fades in as that animation starts. So if we look in our scene tree, we have a couple different cameras set up. You can see the front, this is actually a view set. The front view set is active. And then I've also created this 3/4 view set, and that has some camera animations applied to it as well. So I want to switch to that 3/4 view set right here at this 4-second mark. So to do that, I just right-click on the active camera for my animation and select camera switch event and the camera or view set that I'd like to switch to. So now as we scrub through, we can see that camera switches right at that point. And then we can also add some other fade animations to enhance that transition. So now we have the car fading out, and I can just mirror that animation here, and the car will fade back in. So there we have some fade animations applied to our scene, as well as a camera switch event. So this will allow you to compile your entire animation in one scene without having to go into post-editing software and piecing together your animations. So another great animation feature that we've added is the option for motion blur. And this is actually only for pro users that have animation. So you can find that in the settings menu and also in the settings tab. So if we enable motion blur, you can see since my wheels have a rotation applied to them, that rotation is calculated and a motion blur is added to those wheels. So if I find that wheel rotation and increase the amount of rotation, then it will also increase the amount of blur that you're seeing there with that motion blur. So this motion blur is predominantly for still images, but it can also be used for animations. However, I would recommend only using it for very simple animations, because once there are too many moving parts and cameras in the scene, it just kind of becomes a little complicated. So it might be best just to play around with that and find what works best for you. Okay. So again, motion blur, that was a pro feature, so why don't we go ahead and move on to some additional pro features. And this works well now that we're in the scene with our car here. Make sure I'm back at the beginning of my timeline. And let's just add a new camera or a new view set. And find a backplate on the KeyShot Cloud and use that in our scene. So actually this one works great for what I would like to show you guys. I'd like to thank Wenders42 for uploading this lovely backplate. And we can, if we open up our library and go to our backplates tab, you can see we have a downloads folder in each of those respective categories. And we'll just go ahead and add that to our library. You can see that downloads directly to our library. And
this is the magic of live webinars. Well, this is, perfect timing so that I can give everybody a 15-minute warning that we are approaching the last 15 minutes of the webinar. So if you have questions, this is a good time to write your questions and ask in the background.
okay, so let's see if that backplate was downloaded. It was not, so let's try that again. And while we're doing this, we can talk a little bit more about the KeyShot Cloud. So if you select any of these assets, you can see the detail view comes up where you can like that asset. You can search by clicking on the user's name to see all of the materials or resources that I've uploaded. You can click on each of these tags to search these different tags as well. You can also add comments and report if you feel like these resources are violating some type of copyright or something like that. Okay, so we've downloaded our backplate to our library, and we can apply that to our scene just by dragging and dropping it into the real-time window. And we're locked, so we won't be seeing any of those black bars. And so now we'll pull up the, here, let me go into performance mode so we can run a little bit smoother here. Looks like we're running into a little bit of a problem. But again, the beauty of live webinars.
Well, I have to say the cloud is really impressive and has a lot of potential.
Yeah, we have, I believe, close to 500 users signed up for the cloud. It's completely free to sign up for. So as you, when you launch the KeyShot Cloud button, it will ask you to create a login. So let's see if we can get this backplate in here so I can show you how to use the perspective matching tool. So if we go to our Environments tab and under the background thumbnail, actually while we're here you can see we've added some new accordions as well. These accordion states are remembered when KeyShot is closed and reopened. So it allows you to work a little more efficiently and use space a little more efficiently. So we'll open up our match backplate, and you can see we're given these guidelines. So in order to match our backplate or match our perspective to our backplate, then we can just line up these perspective lines with guidelines that you find in your image. So not all images work with match perspective, but it just helps eliminate some of the guesswork that you may experience when setting up your scene. Although it looks like we've frozen again.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Here's a demonstration on how to deal if KeyShot gets frozen on your computer.
Absolutely. So maybe it's not liking that scene, so I can find another scene where I can show you the rest of the features. As I'm opening up this scene, maybe can ask Sean if there are any questions that have come up that we can answer while I'm looking for this scene.
Absolutely. Let's see. So, Sean, I see, is answering some questions in the background already, and somebody asked about upgrade options and pricing. So, Paul, I refer you to both the Novedge website and Luxion.com to take a look at all the pricing and options right there. And then somebody else here mentioned that, okay, I see Sean answered that, and that KeyShot will be included with SolidEdge, the new SolidEdge. If you're a SolidEdge user, that's definitely something you want to look into. How is it going, Rex?
Good. I'm all ready. So
Great.
I've opened up the Environment tab and the HDRI editor, and we've made some improvements to the editor, and this includes the new sun and sky generator. So this allows you to create accurate geographic lighting situations for your scene. So in this particular image, I've already created a sun and sky, and I've added some pins to it. So we can just show you how that's done. You can choose your resolution. So the higher the resolution, the higher the quality, but it will take a little longer for that to generate. You can select your location. So we'll choose Los Angeles. We can select the date and the time. The turbidity is the amount of haze that you'll see in the environment, and then you also have some options to, say, keep the pins that I've already added in here, and keep the adjustments from the Adjustments tab or the environment settings that you see here. But for now, we'll keep those unselected, and we'll generate our new sun and sky. Apparently it was okay. There, so we have our nice, hard, crisp shadow created by the sun and the sun and sky, and we've also added some pins here. If I hide my pins, you can see the original sun and sky. So we have this black ground, and I just wanted to add a little warmth in there and some cool tones. So I've done that. And in addition, you can also, there's also a lot of flexibility. We can adjust some of these values and find what looks best for our particular scene. And we can also add a new pin type called an image pin. So what I've done here is I've taken an existing HDRI into Photoshop, and I've cropped it to just be this sun, and now I can use this image pin along with set highlight, and I can just click on a different part on my model that I want this pin to shine on, so you can really pinpoint highlights and reflections that you desire in your scene. Okay. So we have 10 minutes, is that correct?
Yes. We have 10
okay,
minutes left.
I would like to show one last scene, if I can.
Absolutely, go ahead. I can see
Okay,
Sean is doing a great job answering all the questions there in the background. So.
Excellent. Okay, so in this case, I'll actually import a model. So you can see we have a different look to the import options here. We've introduced the accordions, which are remembered as well. And then under geometry, you can see now we have the option to import NURBS data. So NURBS allows you to render out very smooth, high-quality images and still keep your polygon level or your tessellation quality low. So this will help keep your file size small and help you work faster in KeyShot but still achieve a very high-quality results. So we'll import this guy with NURBS, and you can see there are definitely some issues here with the surfaces. You see some hard edges, but if we go into NURBS mode, that perfectly smooths out. So what you'd want to do to use this is work on your scene in polygon mode. So let's say I want to just move this so it's resting on the ground here, and apply some materials from our library. And maybe a new environment. Okay, so now that we've set up the basics of our scene, I'd like to show you guys how to use scene sets. So you can see in the scene tree, we now have a new item here for scene sets. And what scene sets does is it links your cameras or view sets to your model configurations. So in this case, we only have one model here in our scene. So let me just add, say, a sphere if we wanted to use that to light as an area light to light our scene. We can apply an area light to that, and you can see it take effect there. But I just want to show you how scene sets might be used. So if this is our default scene set here, let's say we want to show a variation of this, so we can add a scene set by right-clicking and saying this will be our NURBS model. We can assign a camera or a view set to that. And then you can see we have the option to hide different parts, and we can go back to our default to see all of those items in our scene tree. Although interesting. Okay, so let me just show you how to create some material variations with scene sets. So we have our NURB scene set, and we'll create a new scene set for polys. And if we just drag and drop a different material onto here, now we can switch between our two different scene sets that would have different material variations as well as different view sets if we desired. So we can set up, say, a backplate and change our camera, add a view set, and we can assign that view set to one of our scene sets here. And then we'll create another and a view set for that. And now we can assign that to our second scene set. So now we can toggle between those two, and you can set up variations of your scene and an entire virtual photo shoot in one file. So that really allows you to have a lot of flexibility in creating complex scenes, but still keeping the scene tree relatively uncluttered. And you can toggle between scene sets here on the ribbon. Okay, and the last feature that I wanted to show you guys is that 3D print export. So we can export to ZPR or STL if we wanted to take this model and send it to a 3D printer. So we can just save that file name and choose a subdivision level. We can adjust the model scale to fit our printer, and we can export. Now, since this model has some it is not a watertight model, has some issues with the surfaces. These are the non-manifold edges. So you're going to have some errors with that when exporting. So when you do export as a 3D print option, ZPR, STL, you just want to be aware of that when modeling when creating your models and making sure that those are watertight. All right, so that's it for me today. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
Thank you, Rex. Thank you so much. This was great.
Awesome. Okay.
I'm gonna switch back to me.
Sure.
And sort of close this. Let's see. Okay, and show my screen. Okay, thank you everybody for joining us. You should see my slides again now. So take a look at everything about KeyShot 5 on Novedge, right here, novedge.com, and at Luxion.com for more information. Also, don't forget to check out our blog and Facebook page to keep up to date with all that's happening in the Novedge universe. And next week, if you want to find out about Atlantis, we have a great webinar coming up with Chris Stringer, Lighting in Atlantis. Okay, our webinars are all on Vimeo and YouTube. We will upload this webinar a little bit later today, and of course, we'll put all the information. You will receive the information by email, and it will be posted on social media. So if you want to stay in touch, find us on Facebook, Google+, or Twitter, and see you next week. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.